Hi, this is Helen Bair. I'm so glad you've decided to join me for Boundaries, your first line of defense in self-care. I think you're going to be glad you did. Boundaries is part of the Love and Life Skills series intended for healing the relationships with yourself and others. In this chapter, we will discuss how our ability to protect ourselves is related to the strength of our boundaries. This picture is a good representation of boundaries and how they work. Only keep in mind that boundaries apply to every area of your life, not just physical boundaries as this picture would depict. Where do you end and I begin? Who am I? What am I about? Where do I begin? Where do I end? How do I know what's yours? What's mine? Who owns these feelings? Are they yours? Are they mine? Boundaries. They tell me my limits. They tell me my rights. They keep me safe. They help me know where you end and I begin. The Love and Life Skills series is intended to teach concepts and give tools to help you love and protect yourself and others better. Boundaries are one of the most important ways to make that happen. Wherever abuse is possible, there must be boundaries or limits applied. In the first video of this series, How Did I Lose Self-Value?, we learned that abuse can be experienced in every area of life. Thus, solid boundaries are required in every aspect of life as well. Boundaries go both ways. They keep others from violating you, and they keep you from violating others. There's no better way to bring this point home than my experience with tiny pantry moths and Ziploc bags. I found my pantry full of tiny little moths gobbling up all the food and laying eggs in everything they could. I killed every one of them as I saw them, and the next day there were dozens more. So the boundary I came up with to solve my moth problem was securing a Ziploc bag tightly around anything where they could lay their eggs, like cold cereal or grains. I was avoiding another infestation of moths from both angles. Moths going out to infest other food, or moths coming in to contaminate new food. Later, some bags did develop moths inside, so those were the bags that I simply threw away. At the same time, no moths were able to infest the untouched food, so my strategy worked. My moth problem ended. In the same way, healthy boundaries work both ways. They keep you from intruding on others' lives, but they also keep others from violating you. Behind the loss of self-value is a shortage of boundaries. People who lack self-value may think they're not worth protecting, so they allow others who seem stronger or wiser to invade them, to run them, to make their decisions for them and determine what their value is, sometimes even to crush them. This may be the reason that some people are in so much pain, because they have not yet learned to protect themselves from others who would violate them. Like traffic laws, personal boundaries are intended to create safety and peace for yourself and others. Boundaries you set for yourself are not something that you agree on with others. They are rules that you set for yourself to keep your body, your mind, your property, and everything else in your life safe. Then, after you make your boundaries, you make sure that others know about them, along with the consequences that come from violating them. The consequences may be you simply walking away, hanging up the phone, divorce, insisting that a person pay for a borrowed item or you're going to take them to a small claims court, going no contact, reporting the abuse to authorities, and so on. Cities, states, and countries have laws to protect their citizens. So must you decide on a personal level the rules and laws that you need to protect yourself, and then be willing to enforce them. Boundaries may come across to some as rejections, limiting, selfish, aggressive, or restrictive. But just like traffic laws are the best way to create ideal driving conditions, personal boundaries are the best way to create peace, order, freedom, and fairness for all parties involved. There are two general categories of boundaries: tangible and intangible. The tangible ones are easy to understand. Locks, fences, doors that separate one room from another, gates, anything that keeps your house and property separate and safe. We also understand the concept of legal contracts that keep people from taking advantage of others. However, intangible boundaries can be a harder concept to grasp, since there's nothing you can hold on to, such as thinking, ideas, spirituality, beliefs, goals, dreams, values, time, feelings, self-care, space, and such. In the same way your life would be violated without tangible boundaries, the intangible aspects of your life need protection too. So how do you get intangible boundaries? You create them. An intangible boundary might be something like this invisible plexiglass bubble that this man imagines around himself. With his self-created bubble, he can keep a safe, supportive environment inside, regardless of what's going on outside. Like this. We have no control over what others say, but we do have control over what we take to heart of what others say. This man's intangible boundary deflects criticism and replaces it with his own predetermined belief that he has chosen for himself. Here's another intangible boundary. I keep myself separate from other people's dysfunction or drama. Here's some examples. Though I love my family, I walk away or tune them out when they start fighting with each other. Or, my co-workers gossip about each other, but I refuse to participate or listen to it. Boundaries can become porous at your discretion. This person likes what's coming in, so he allows it. You are in charge of deciding what stays out and what comes in. Your boundaries are a living and flexible thing that you can arrange and rearrange from person to person or in different circumstances. What areas of life need boundaries? Almost every area. Here's the short list. Let your mind fill in anything that I've forgotten to mention here. If you want to get details about a lot of different kinds of boundaries and their violations, look on the supplementary material under this video. There's only one area of life where you don't need boundaries. Do you want to guess what that is? God. With God or higher power, you do not need boundaries because God is the only one you can trust completely. The only thing I would warn you against is taking someone else's word for who or what God is, what God's will is for you, or claiming to be God. Those are all things that you need to find out for yourself directly from the source. If you need any help making that connection, look for the video on this series called Let Go and Let God. This is how I was taught in the 12-step program to make that connection with God. So stay tuned for Let Go and Let God, and I will teach you the best love and life skills that I ever learned. Here are a few signs of healthy boundaries. You choose how close or far you stand or sit from others. Tell others and let others tell you your place in each other's lives, and then stay within those limits. Show empathy and interest while remaining detached. Here's some signs of unhealthy boundaries: ignoring danger signals, giving unsolicited advice, trusting strangers or offenders, remaining loyal when loyalty is not deserved, telling all too soon. And that's just a few. Check out the rest of the signs of unhealthy and healthy boundaries in the supplementary material below. When is the best time to establish boundaries? Ahead of time, before there is a problem. What if you miss your opportunity to set boundaries? Then rehearse in your mind what you will do different the next time. How do you know about other people's boundaries? Well, if they don't tell you, ask them. Part 2. Any kind of dysfunction lies in extremes. Here are some of the extremes that we live in before setting boundaries. Walls, created to block out what is painful or unacceptable. The other extreme is inconsistent boundaries or no boundaries, or vacillating back and forth between the two extremes. Walls are kind of like psychological armor. Here are some examples of the kinds of walls we might build in an attempt to protect ourselves from what seems threatening. Rage, addictions, silence, blame, stubborn, criticism, rigidity, non-stop talking, or maybe just not talking at all, shutting down, and there's a lot more, but I just don't have them listed here. So take note of any that apply to you. That will be your recovery goals. Walls keep you isolated within your own defenses. They do provide a certain amount of safety, but soon a person may begin to feel lonely. Walls may be blocking out what is most important to you, such as intimacy, love, companionship, happiness, your genuine self, and even your connection with God can become blocked because of your own defense mechanisms. The other extreme is no boundaries, which means no protection. You are either violating others or allowing others to violate you all the time. No boundaries causes enmeshed relationships and are a major setup for pain. Many go back and forth between these two extremes of walls and no boundaries, and we call this push-pull relationships. Walls provide safety, but are also lonely and isolating, so you may switch over to no boundaries where there's enmeshment with others. But when no protection gets too painful, you may want to head back to those walls for protection. And once again, you have to deal with loneliness and isolation. This push-pull pattern can repeat itself over and over and over again. Some make an attempt at protection by creating partial boundaries, which means you are only partially protected part of the time. So let's say this person has good boundaries with his neighbors, but allows his children to control him. He has good boundaries at work, but is unfaithful to his spouse and tries to control her. There are some boundaries here, but there are still some violations happening. Instead of vacillating back and forth between extremes, find balance by setting healthy boundaries in every area of your life. How do you get healthy personal boundaries? You create them, and then you enforce them. How do you know when boundaries have been violated? Your feelings, your intuition, and your logic. When you feel or sense that something is wrong, let your logic kick in, take a look at the situation, and usually the answer is pretty straightforward when things aren't right. How do you prevent others from violating your boundaries? Well, you begin by telling them what they are. You can't expect others to read your mind. Here are some examples. No hugs. I'm uncomfortable hugging. I require this much space. I take calls beginning at 8. We have a no-gun rule in our business. Ask for their cooperation. Will you please not hug me? Would you please step back? Please wait to call after 8 a.m. Please leave your gun in the car. Notice I use please a lot? Well, that's a very good idea to set firm boundaries, but you want to do it in a kind but firm way. Set consequences that you have control over for non-compliance, and then be prepared to carry through with them. If you insist on hugging me after I've asked you not to, I will not be inviting you again. Unless you step back, I'll remove myself. If you continue to call me before 8 a.m., I may have to drop you as my client. If you attempt to enter with a firearm, we will call security. Unless you create consequences for boundary violation, you may not get any cooperation. Here are some more examples of how that might work. Yes, I'm happy to lend you my lawnmower as long as you agree to fix it if anything goes wrong while you're using it. Also, I'll need to have it back by tomorrow afternoon. As long as you cooperate with these conditions, I'll be happy to let you use it at any time. If not, I'm not going to lend it to you anymore. So this was a borrowing boundary and a time boundary and a consequence attached. Here's another one. Yes, you can have a sleepover as long as you get to sleep by midnight and clean up after yourself in the morning. As long as you can do that, then you can continue to have sleepovers. If you don't carry through with consequences for noncompliance, then you will be an easy target to be manipulated further. How do you keep from violating others' boundaries? Ask. Are we allowed to eat food in this room? There's a food boundary. How many minutes do I have to speak? There's a time boundary. When do I need to leave? There's another time boundary. How many dollars can I spend? There's a money boundary. Can I borrow your car? There's an ownership lending boundary. Can I give you a hug? There's a physical or intimacy boundary. See how that works? If you ask others and they don't tell you about their boundaries, then it's not your fault if you happen to violate them, because you can't read minds. I mean, some boundary violations are obvious, but there are some that you just simply don't know about, and you can't be expected to know what they are if someone doesn't tell you about them. However, this rule changes in a power over relationship, such as a policeman who has more power than the citizen at that moment. The policeman can give you a ticket for violating laws that you're not aware of. And in that case, it is your responsibility to seek out what the laws are of your city, state, and federal government so that you can be prepared and not get caught with a ticket. Part 3. Pointers for setting personal boundaries with others. To give you another one of Pia Melody's ideas, good boundaries are like an expandable and contractible fence. You get to decide with each person and circumstance whether or not you want to collapse your invisible boundary and let someone or something come in close to you, or expand it out at a safe distance for protection. At the core of your expandable, contractible fence is the most valuable, vulnerable, and sacred part of you that needs ultimate protection. The closer a person gets into this most intimate space, the more time-tested trust you must have in them. The extreme opposite is your outer limits. This is where you place people where there is no trust given, either people you don't know or people who have proven to be untrustworthy. In this space, you will show superficial courtesy, but you will stay at a safe distance. When and if you are ready, you can begin trusting and bring that person slightly closer into your space. After much time and investigation, if all goes well, you cautiously allow more trust. Eventually, your trust becomes more casual. After time, you may have reasons to trust even more. At some point, trust has been earned, and at your discretion, you may allow only those who have shown stellar trust to move close into your most vulnerable place. You may decide to never allow anyone but God into this place, because this is at the soul level and the place that you could be hurt the most. Healthy trust comes slowly over time. Sometimes it may even take years. You get to decide how close or how distant a person gets to be within your expandable, contractible fence. A new acquaintance? You're kind but cautious. You will likely allow a time-tested friend to come in more closely. You can remain guarded and distant from a mean neighbor, keep them far away. The bad guys, you lock out. Parents or siblings may be placed in different locations on your invisible boundary, depending on the level of trust you have in them. Ideally, a relationship with a spouse should be placed right in your most vulnerable area. But since so few people put in the time and effort required to choose a safe and loyal spouse, that is not always the case. Many people have to distance themselves from their spouse in order to be safe. Anyone who has committed a trust violation will need to be put way out of your boundary. They may have to take much time and good behavior to earn your trust again. Even then, they may never get back into the same most intimate space that you had with them before. That will be up to your discretion. These positions differ from person to person and time to time. Let your logic, feelings, and intuition and God be your guide. Here's one woman's story. I wish I would have known years ago what I know now. I thought that if a person knew my deepest feelings, thoughts, and vulnerabilities, they would understand and love me. Little did I know that being so vulnerable with this man was an opportunity for him to gather information to use against me. Only hard consequences taught me to use better judgment of who I divulge my inner self to. There are people in this world whose sole intention is to control and abuse you. Use good judgment and much time to protect yourself from those kinds of predators. And by the way, men aren't always the predators. Sometimes it's the women who are. Be courteous to all, but intimate with few. And let those few be well tried before you give them your confidence. Wise words from the father of our country. Be careful who you share your weaknesses with. Some people can't wait for the opportunity to use them against you. Your boundaries may be tested with other people's disapproval. You need to be like us. You're not conforming. I wish I could tell you that setting boundaries will make you popular and well-liked. But often people who finally see the light and are ready to change are already in relationships with people who are not ready to change. So you may be criticized for doing the healthy act of setting boundaries. People who like taking advantage of you and know you have always been an easy target will sometimes do everything in their power to pull you back into being the person that you used to be, easily manipulated and controlled. So be prepared. You may get some flack or rejection for making healthier choices. How do you cope with disapproval? You expect a time of adjustment. Seek for a healthy support system elsewhere. Do work on your own self-esteem. Take care of yourself. Find healthier people to spend time with. So be prepared for disapproval, but also be prepared for relief and freedom that comes on the other side. Can boundaries ever be abusive? Applied properly, they are not abusive, although dysfunctional people who want to keep taking advantage of you will try to convince you they are. When you set boundaries, you may feel guilty. Guilt is the withdrawal symptom of being externally centered. So experience the guilt and take care of yourself anyway. What you're feeling is not really guilt, because true guilt means that you've actually done something wrong. Self-care and boundary setting is not wrong. It's actually healthy. But externally centered people are so enmeshed with what other people are going to think of them and how they're going to react that the feelings that they're getting may feel like guilt. So give yourself permission to blow off that feeling and just continue taking care of yourself. Once you get past the displeasure of those who are used to taking advantage of you, you will probably feel a whole lot better. In this life, people will love you and people will hate you, and none of that will have anything to do with you. Please remember this. Keep a strong boundary between what others think of you and what you choose to think of yourself. What about forgiveness? By all means, forgive yourself and forgive others when boundaries have been violated, because we all make mistakes. However, forgiveness is not a free pass to allow people to continue abusing you, or vice versa. So by all means forgive, but take ownership of your own mistakes, apologize if needed, and expect the same from others. Let trust be earned back before making yourself vulnerable again. Pointers for setting intrapersonal boundaries with yourself. Keep the part of you that worries way out there. Give positive self-talk a front row seat. Keep your inner critic at a far distance. Your inner advocate you can trust in your sacred space. Negative beliefs such as I'm not good enough, you keep way, way far away. And by the way, you can use SRT to help resolve those negative beliefs, and I will tell you more about SRT in a minute. The part of you that overcommits is not allowed anywhere close to you. The perfectionist can come in close on occasion when needed, like when filling out a resume or doing a presentation at work, but stays on the shelf the rest of the time so that you can have some peace and rest otherwise. Those are just some of the boundaries that you set inside of yourself for yourself. Other internal boundaries might be like how much you allow yourself to eat, drink, or go out with friends. How much time you devote to exercise, what kind of thoughts you entertain in your head, and things like that. So my point is, not only do you have to set boundaries with others outside of you, but you have to set boundaries with yourself as well to keep from abusing yourself. Allow, once again, your logic and reason to help decide what is healthy and life-affirming for you, and then stick with it. Setting boundaries with others needs to be done in the spirit of cooperation, with the intent of making things work the best way possible for everyone. It's like the beginning of a ball game. If rules and consequences for breaking the rules are set and made known in advance, and everyone agrees, you will likely have a fun and successful experience with each other. If you're the only one that wants healthy boundaries and others want contention, then you will have to decide if you want to continue having a relationship with people like that. A most healing experience and affirming experience is spending your time with safe people who have good boundaries. So you can start out by being one of those kind of people and then find those kinds of people to be in relationships with you. If your boundaries have already been violated, or you know that you have violated others and you carry the pain, the shame, or the trauma as a result of all of that, you can use SRT or subconscious repairing therapy to put all of that in the past. It's like cleaning the slate or reprogramming your mind computer or putting those events to rest as if they never happened, even if you know they did. You can learn more about SRT on the introductory videos that you will find on findingthehealer.com. If you're watching this video on YouTube, then go to findingthehealer.com, look for the Love and Life Skills series on the front page by the butterflies at the bottom. Then find the video called Boundaries, and the supplementary material is just below that video. So, to sum all of this up, here's another quote from Pia Melody. Who I am is about me, not about you. Who you are is about you, not about me. I created who I am. You create who you are. Each of us must know the impact of our reality on the other. Wise words. Thank you for watching. The next video I would suggest you watch is on your Bill of Rights and power positions. That goes hand in hand with what you've just learned about boundaries. But I hope you choose to watch the whole series. I think you'll be glad you did. More videos are coming, so stay tuned. Adios.